This is an interesting perspective, I guess you could say. Now, I don't normally do a lot of stuff via visual on my face, but I felt that with the new year that we should start kind of getting a little bit more personable. Along with that, I had made a few decisions a couple of months ago regarding a podcast that I was doing and how I was shutting it down. As you could probably tell, that didn't happen. Essentially because I still have such an attachment to the name and to the work I put into that channel. And I had some pretty decent ideas for what the new channel was going to be. But then I figured, why bother? Why am I bothering with all of this? This channel is perfect. This name is perfect. I've had this name for 20 years. When YouTube was a thing, I started. And I said all that in what was supposed to be the very last entry of that channel. But now I decided to go back on my word a little bit because I really want to bring that back. And I love the podcasting angle of things so much that I was like, why am I going to start from scratch? I already have this. And it was a lot of decision making, a lot of kind of balance, the pros and cons of it. What I really wanted was I wanted a connection to the YouTube channel, to the studio, to where I wanted all of my creativity to be channeled through. And when I was making those decisions on where I wanted these things to be channeled through, a name change felt like the right route to go. Unfortunately, it's been very difficult for me to sort of allow that to happen because I still have such an attachment to the Diary of a Cinephile brand. So we're just going to keep it around, and I'm just going to keep doing it. And we're going into the new year with hopefully a better set schedule and hopefully a new way of doing things. I've switched podcast hosting websites, so you're still going to get all of the podcasts on the normal distribution channels. However, they are going to be the video format that you're going to see here on YouTube, and then you're going to be able to find it as a podcast on things like Spotify, Apple Music, Prime, all that stuff. And I guess what better way to kind of start it off than with a movie that I'm surprised I haven't talked about yet on this channel. It's a movie that I hold dear to my heart, as many other 90s kids likely do, because this is what is considered, to me at least, the epitome of pure 90s Disney. A Goofy movie just stands above the rest of them. There's just nothing like a Goofy movie out there, and there hasn't been anything since. When you're talking about 90s Disney movies, a lot of people consider the pinnacles things like The Lion King or Aladdin or Little Mermaid, all of these movies that really made up what is considered the best era of Disney. But we forget that Disney is all about these characters that they set in stone 50 years ago. Mickey Mouse, Donald Duck, all of these characters, and there aren't that many prominent films that star just them. Like, sure, you could say Fantasia, but Fantasia is just a visual representation of what the animation was capable of doing. Like, the story is really not the greatest, but it is a great movie nonetheless. But when it comes to substance, there's something else about a Goofy movie when you're talking about prominent characters of the original Disney lineup. Before Disney made all of these characters, before they had the Aladdins and the Genies and the Bells, all the princesses, it thrived off of these old school cartoons. And granted, it also thrived off of the older movies like Bambi and Cinderella, and then that could sort of lend to why they sort of abandoned all of the other characters and just kept leading with all of these interesting other stories that didn't even have anything to do with what is the original lineup. It's sort of like making a Looney Tunes movie and there being no Bugs Bunny. It just doesn't make any sense. Especially when you're considering the Disney Trinity: Goofy, Donald, Mickey. And it's always been Mickey and Donald are the most popular, and Goofy's kind of the guy at the bottom. He's kind of the third wheel. And then they came out with this movie, and it totally sent Goofy into another friggin' realm. Because a Goofy movie is not just a story that's meant to be some sort of fantasy adventure. It's a story like about a legitimate family, a story that's a representation of not only just connection with someone you love, but it's also just the pure imaginative form of what all 90s kids dreamt about. Like, all 90s kids wanted to be on stage with one of the biggest stars in the world that they idolized. Like, the amount of people that I know of from back in the 90s that would have loved to have been on stage with any number of the biggest artists of that generation. And this movie gave that to you. It gave you the perspective of what it looked like or what it would be like if that happened to you. Being able to impress the entire school the way Max does when he pretends to be Powerline and then just gets the girl of his dreams in certain respect, that hits home so much with us 90s babies. I don't know if kids of this generation are having those imaginations. I don't know if they actually would consider that. Most of them are probably just happy if they're like in the same room or being able to do a TikTok with them. And it's one of the reasons why this is one of the best Disney movies from the 90s, in my perspective at least. And I'm not the only one. People are still talking about this movie nonstop over the last, 30 years since it was released. We're talking, it's 30 years old this year, 2025, and people are still talking about this movie. Now, granted, they're also talking about all of the other movies from the 90s, but when you're talking about all those other movies, you're also talking about them in light of a lot of their live-action remakes that nobody likes. A Goofy movie ain't gonna get a live-action. I hope it doesn't even get a reboot. I don't want them to touch it. I want them to leave it alone as the gem that it is. But I also want people to respect what a Goofy movie did, especially for us 90s babies who were so in love and so passionate about this story and had such a connection with the character of Max that it's going to withstand the test of time. It's going to be something that almost everybody can relate to in some shape or form. Now, one of the little facts that I learned recently about a Goofy movie that kind of took me by surprise is the guy who plays Powerline. His name is Tevin Campbell. Now, I've always known that. A lot of people don't know that. A lot of people are shocked that I do know that when I bring that up, but I do know that. And Tevin Campbell actually was a pretty big pop star before the fact, which I guess is why he landed that role, but it's kind of interesting when you consider that I didn't even know that he had other music out, but he's got 4 studio albums out throughout the 90s that were pretty successful. Then he got into some unfortunate situations where he was arrested for possession of marijuana back in the late 90s and something about soliciting a lewd act from a police officer. That's a little unfortunate because I feel like he was such a young star that kind of led him down the wrong path, and now he's kind of like not doing much of anything and maybe just showing up as, hey, I'm the dude that played Powerline. But he's almost 50, so it's kind of interesting to see if people really actually 100% care about that perspective of just seeing who actually played Powerline. More so, they're actually going out and doing Powerline themselves. The amount of videos I've seen over the last few years that just totally, pay tribute to this movie and to the music that this movie created is unimaginable. I never thought in a million years that kind of light would be shined on this movie so many years after the fact. But then again, when you think about it, this is the generation where all of those kids that grew up with it are now my age. And yeah, we're going to talk about it because this is the generation of putting things out there that you want to talk about. Like podcasting is huge now, and YouTube is vastly, unfathomably huge that you wouldn't be able to find every video possible about a Goofy movie, but they're still coming out. I've seen a few in the last 6 months that are coming out, and we're talking about that it's leading up to its 30th anniversary, and it kind of makes sense, but it's still so nice to see. Like, you could talk about the 30th or the 25th or the 20th anniversary of so many things. I saw a post on Twitter a few days ago that somebody had posted something like, here are the big movie anniversaries in 2025. And it was a lot of movies that were turning 30, 40, 50, 60, 70 years old that just gives you perspective on what it is that they have withstood the test of time that allows them to be praised in that fashion. We're at the quarter century mark, so talking about these films is still a big deal because you still want them to be prominent in today's film world. It's like saying that we're not going to talk about The Wizard of Oz anymore because The Wizard of Oz is going on almost 100 years old at this point. What about Casablanca, Gone with the Wind, Citizen Kane? We're not going to talk about these movies anymore because this is not our generation? No, they have to be spoken about. And I'm not going to sit here and try to say that a Goofy movie is in the same realm as friggin' 2001 Space Odyssey. I'm not. I'm just saying that movies that stand the test of time are important. And I feel like this is a movie that has a storyline that doesn't get enough praise. It doesn't get spoken about in the same light as other Disney movies because there's just something that's a little bit more warm-hearted. There's something that hits home so much deeper when it comes to this movie. And then they came out with a sequel. I've never actually seen it. I've never really cared for the sequel. I know that might sound weird. Like, how did you not see an extremely Goofy movie? I didn't really care to see it. I'm a big fan of the idea of if it doesn't need a sequel, don't make it. And the Goofy movie just feels like one of those movies. The original is just so good that it didn't need to be touched, and it can still be something that can stay the same, and I don't even think a lot of people who are major fans of it even know of the sequel either, because it wasn't the same. It doesn't hit the same as the first one does. I don't even think it went into theaters, and I'm pretty sure a Goofy movie was in theaters. And the other reason that it's kind of been more prominent in my circle these days is because now I have a son. He's 2 years old. He's going to be 3 this year in 2025, and I'm starting to expose him to all of these movies and TV shows that I was growing up with. He's got his shows that he's interested in, and he's got the things that he likes, and of course he watches those, but every now and then, I try an old movie. I try an old TV show. So far, he hates Batman, he hates the Ninja Turtles, he hates Aladdin, he hates Cars, he hates Toy Story. He doesn't pay attention to any of that stuff. But I've become really, set on him watching and kind of enjoying this movie, and a couple of months ago he finally sat there and paid attention to a good portion of it. The first thing ever that he's actually enjoyed that I've sat and tried to sort of expose him to, and maybe that might have been it might have been the 5th or 6th time I showed it to him. I was making this joke with my wife that I'm going to spend every day for the next year just putting a Goofy movie on at least once until he likes it. And granted, it was like that for 3 days, and then I got bored of it, and then I waited a little while, and I showed it again, and I want to say it was at least maybe 6 or 7, 8 times at most, and yeah, randomly, he started bouncing around to the music, and he's starting to really like it. Because the music is also one of the best parts of it, let alone it not being a story that he's exactly going to get right now. He's loving the music, so I'm happy about it. He finally enjoys something from my childhood that I'm trying to bring into his childhood. So yeah, I felt like starting in the new year with talking about a movie that I hold dear to my heart was kind of important. And as you can tell, even with the sort of farewell I did in the last entry, I'm not going to delete that. I'm still going to leave that up because I feel there's no reason to delete that at this point. Maybe in a couple of years, I'll consider getting rid of it depending on how many entries there are. So I'm just going to keep it in line with how I've been doing it so far, and we're just going to keep going as if that was just another entry and just totally keep in line with what we're doing. I'm not going to change anything. And so far, the only thing that's changed about the podcast is now it's going to be in video form as well. If you're just listening to this as a podcast, you should go check out the YouTube channel, Ghost Potato Studio. It's a lot of fun. I have a lot of fun making those videos, and I think you'll enjoy it as well. If you're watching this on YouTube, thank you so much. If this is the first time you're seeing this channel and you're not subscribed, consider subscribing. Growth in the channel is so important to me, and I would just love to see the channel get bigger and bigger, and it would mean a lot to me if you stuck around. But, it's up to you. I'm not going to force you. Do your thing. If you're already subscribed, thanks so much for watching. I hope you enjoy this new style of stuff that I'm trying to do. Maybe you don't like my face, but get used to it because you're going to see a lot of it because I'm going to be using it in a lot more videos. I appreciate you all so much. I hope you had a happy, healthy, and safe new year. I think 2025 is going to be big for me, and I hope it's going to be big for you and your family. We're just going to keep the journey going. Cheers.